The Colleagues Breakfast Club was created, like most breakfast clubs, with the notion of reciprocity in mind. Young professionals were invited to join the club in the hope of everyone finding new clients for their products and services. As friendships grew, however, reciprocity, although still a driving force for growth in the club, took a back seat to social camaraderie found on the golf course and in various get-togethers, smokers, and club-sponsored events. Lasting friendships were made, and connections outside of normal club activities were discovered. This video is the backstory of one such connection.
Tom and I met about 5 years ago, and one of the things that he knew of me is that I'm a Marine. And so he shared some stories about his wife's father being in the Marine Corps. And so we immediately found a connection that we had with one another. And as we started talking more and more about my grandfather and Ann's father being in the Marine Corps, we stumbled across the fact that they were both at the Battle of Tarawa.
My dad, Herbert Carroll Ketskowski, was born on June 11th, 1917 in Elkader, Iowa, a small town in northeast Iowa. He grew up with 2 brothers and 3 sisters, lived in Elkader his entire life until he enlisted in the Marines in October of 1940, prior to the war breaking out. When Dad joined the service, there wasn't a lot of action, and he even wrote letters home to his younger siblings that it was a pretty easy job.
We do a lot of laying around out here, Unc. You ought to join the Marines if you want a soft job.
My grandfather, Charles Larson, was born in 1926. Grew up here in the Midwest. At the age of 14, 15 years of age, quite frankly, he didn't know what he was going to do. That all changed, though, on December 7th, 1941. At the age of 15, he lied about his age, and like so many other men, joined the Marine Corps.
So life was pretty good as a Marine until December 7th, 1941. It was a Sunday morning. My dad was about ready to go out on leave when the sirens went off and all the Marines were called back to base. The Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. After the war broke out, things changed for the Marines, and some of the letters my father wrote back changed. He talked about some of the horrible conditions they had to endure and the danger that they were placed in.
Too bad you didn't get any stubble ducks this year. Well, I didn't get any either. Only the kind I was hunting for in Tarawa shoot back. And those close bullets flying around sure whistle. They kinda go zing.
When the Marines arrived at Tarawa, most thought it was going to be a simple mop-up mission. The enemy on the island had been heavily bombed by both sea and air. Things, however, started going wrong right from the very beginning. The tide was lower than expected, and the landing craft couldn't make it over the coral reefs some 400 yards from the beach. That left the Marines out in the open to fend for themselves. Many drowned under the weight of the backpacks and equipment they were carrying. By the end of the 3-day battle, more than 1,000 Marines and sailors had been killed. Nearly 2,300 were wounded.
For a number of years, my 2 brothers and I always wanted to go on a tour to visit one of the islands my dad encountered combat on during World War II. But it just never worked for the 3 of us to get a trip planned together. 3 years ago, Tom and I decided we were going to go to Tarawa. We found a military tour group that took us on a great tour of the island of Tarawa. We were able to see where our Marines landed, the beaches that they invaded on that day, the remnants of what was left from the island from the war, and we were able to join a group called History Flight Inc., who was there digging up remains of the soldiers that were left behind. Another part of our trip was a flight to the island of Macon, which was also liberated on November 20th of 1943. The people of Macon were very appreciative of what the United States had done for them and the Marines, and they actually delayed an anniversary celebration because they knew our group was coming. And they did a really, really exciting entertainment. They had the kids from their schools do all kinds of marching and singing, and I remember specifically the kids going, "We love America!" Part of the celebration on Macon, the children reenacted November 20th, 1943. Some of them flew around like airplanes, others put their arms up in the air and shot them down. It was really touching to see how much it meant for them that the Americans had liberated their island.
United States Navy, Battle of Tarawa, November 20th, 1943. In grateful memory to those men who paid for liberty with their lives, sailors, airmen, chaplains, doctors, and especially the Navy corpsmen. To the crews of supporting United States ships, carriers, battleships, cruisers and destroyers, submarines, transports, and landing craft. Well done. We, your fellow Marines, salute you one and all. God rest your souls.
The war affected a lot of people in different ways. Some soldiers didn't make it home. Some came home with severe injuries. Some came home with mental exhaustion. Some ended up with health conditions that may have been attributed to the war. My father was diagnosed with leukemia, and the University of Iowa doctor felt there had been a correlation between those that served in the South Pacific and the acquiring disease leukemia. Growing up the daughter of a World War II Marine veteran, I was always taught to be proud of the American flag and the national anthem. There's a lot of controversy about that today, and I just want to say, Dad, I'm proud of what you did, and thank all of the servicemen today for their service.
There are many people that you meet in your life who have a great effect on you, whether good or bad. One of the people that had a great effect on me was my grandfather. I think about him daily. When I see the flag, I think of my grandfather. When I see a column of marching soldiers, I think about my grandfather. I think about the sacrifices that he made, not to better himself, but for this country. I think about my grandfather every day. And so if I had the opportunity to speak to my grandfather one more time, I'd like to tell him, thank you for your service. Thank you, Grandpa. I love you.